It's not a vacation, it's something more. It's a cultural immersion. Learn what it's like to live the good life abroad by taking a look at living in Europe for 30 days up to 6 months with our good guest today. Come join us on The Retirement Spy. Welcome to The Retirement Spy studio today. We share experiences in a collaborative platform for those entering phase 2 of life and are ready to embrace this chapter with gusto and an attitude of carpe diem. You can find out more about us at www.theretirementspy.com or send us ideas and topics to info@theretirementspy.com. Today, we're really excited to have Andrew Motiwala, who's going to join us from his company, The Good Life Abroad, to talk to us about what I call an immersion vacation. Andrew's company curates lengthy stays abroad that are more than vacations, but deep cultural indoctrinations to beautiful countries and cultures with a degree of an immersion. Andrew, tell us more about The Good Life Abroad and how this kind of came about. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hey, Duncan, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. The Good Life Abroad, essentially it is a month or two in a beautiful European city. You get your own apartment, but what's great about it is you have other fellow travel lovers who live in apartments right around you in the same neighborhood or sometimes even the same building. And you have a local staff person. You could think of them as a guide, but they're not really a guide. We call them a community manager, and they put on activities and events throughout the month. So you can come together with your fellow community members, have a nice meal, a happy hour, a cooking class, a music workshop, but then you break off and do your own exploration. So it's a way to provide some support, to provide some cultural immersion, but at the same time, give you the freedom and independence to go off and explore a city in your own. And we're in like 25 cities across Europe now.
This is so exciting.
So it's not really a tour, but it has the support of that you would find in a tour, but it's a month-long immersion.
You know what I love about this? My wife's already on your website. She's like, look, get some details on the following. I'm so excited. So I would imagine somewhere in your background, and I know this because I've already done research on you, there's an international component to your life. But where did the spark come from? Did you start as a travel agent and say we need something deeper than a travel agency? Because what you have here is unique. Tell me about the spark of creativity that kind of led you to where The Good Life Abroad is today.
Sure. So I've worked in the travel industry for most of my professional career, but mostly with educational travel, student travel, university students, that kind of thing. Then I kind of left travel for a bit, did some other things, but travel stayed with me. And I was trying to figure out what is the next thing. And one of the things I remember from my previous company is we had this thing for family travel. It was grandparents, kids, and the grandkids, right? And I would go on these sometimes, and I hear all the grandparents say, these are nice trips and all. And it's nice to spend time with their family. But, we're retired. We have more time. Isn't there something where we don't have to be like on the bus, off the bus, in the hotel, in this hotel, like moving? We have time. That's what we have in retirement. So is there anything that like is a little more slower paced? And I thought, that's a brilliant idea. How do we do that? And especially for the people who really like deep cultural immersion. And so that was a part of it in my mind. And then the other spark was a bit selfish, honestly. I was thinking about my retirement because I'm getting up there and thinking, what do I want to do? I would like to live abroad for part of the year. I don't want to leave America. I love America, and I live in California, right near the ocean. It's a wonderful place. But maybe for a few months of the year, I'd love to be in Europe. And I'd like the apartment to just be kind of handled. But, but I don't want to be alone. It kind of gets lonely, even if you have a partner, you're married. She's heard your jokes a million times before, it's like, it's nice to make friends. And so I put something out on social media to my friends, said, has anyone wanted to live abroad, but not done it? Like, if so, contact me. And I basically did a survey, and like 100 people of my friends said, I've always wanted to live abroad in Europe, but I haven't done it. So the survey was, why haven't you done it? And it turns out there's a bunch of pain points, right? Like, I get lonely. And it turns out that's a common one. When you move to another country, it's hard to make friends with the locals because they don't know if you're going to be around for a while. You don't speak the language necessarily. Other questions around healthcare. What happens is, I fall as we get older. These falls, they take their toll. And so there's a bunch of different pain points. And I thought we could solve these pain points. We could make it really easy for people to live their dream of living in Europe for a few months at a time. And we could do that with having a support person, medical insurance, and a community of friends and activities when you can connect with them. And that was really when it all kind of came together in my mind, like, aha, this is a need. People have this dream. And then I remember what that guy told me. He said about retirees, and we have the time. And that's when I thought, let's do this, but let's really focus on the 55 plus community.
Well, absolutely. This is your target market. To me, it's intimidating if you want to live an expatriate life and you're going down the path. You answer a few of the questions. What do I do about healthcare? How do I live? So I think you've got an equation of how to solve that. But when you began this in your own mind, what were the myths that you had about an expatriate life that we all have that you said, look, here was the myths, the 1, 2, 3, and eradicate those myths? What was going through your mind as you've been through this?
Yeah, no, it's because the people, when I first had this idea and I put it out there, people said, I don't get it. I don't get it. If I want to live abroad, why don't I just get an Airbnb? I could just get an Airbnb on my own and go live there. And you absolutely can. And it's great. However, I did some market research and I went on to these Facebook groups, these Reddit groups for expatriates. And I literally went through and cataloged all the different questions people were asking. And I put them in a category. And it turns out these categories are not surprising. A lot of questions about medical care, right? But it's even not just like, how do I get medical care? It's things like, well, okay, if it's something minor, sure, you go here. But what if I need to get heart surgery? That's a different thing. Or what if it's something in between? So you actually need some local expertise and not just some random person on Facebook, right? You're trusting your health. This is serious stuff now. And so you really want someone with knowledge and expertise. And that's where a company like us could come into play and say, where we have an actual medical safety plan for each of our destinations. If it's a tier 1 incident, we go here. If it's a tier 2, it's there. If it's tier 3, we do this. Where are the English speaking doctors? All that stuff is like planned for and it's just in place. So God forbid something happen. It's not like we have to figure out what we're doing. We're well prepared for this. So that's one thing, is understanding it's not just medical care. There's a lot of details behind it. The other thing we saw, I mentioned it before, but we saw really appear time and time again, is this idea around community and loneliness. Sure, you can get an Airbnb, but you're going to get kind of lonely if you're there for a couple of months, even for a month. And so how do you combat that? And for us, the answer is community and having people around you who are sort of in the same boat as you, and who you have a natural reason to connect with. So in our program, you got to show up at orientation. You show up at the welcome party. You get some drinks. You start to realize you have a lot in common with these people. And then you meet a few times a week during our events. You start to strike up friendships. Maybe not with everyone, but in a group of 15, 16 people, there's going to be a handful you really click with. And maybe you say, hey, you want to go out for dinner, or you want to go check out some tapas so we can go to have little small plates in a bunch of places, or let's go see the opera in Rome. So you find people you connect with and you start to do things, and that you realize that the community is really important. So the myth is I can just go and get this Airbnb myself. You can, but there's a lot of other things you're going to be missing out on, and you'll probably be thankful you had them once you do.
I'd love to answer the question. Clearly, you have an entrepreneurial gene in there, because this is genius that you put this together. When you're going beyond the Airbnb, we're not being sponsored by Airbnb. The Retirement Spy doesn't, yada, yada, yada. But you're looking at something beyond an Airbnb. There's got to be cultural challenges. You're going in to say, okay, we're going to take a block of houses, rooms, or accommodations, and then you're looking to try to bridge cultural gaps between your clients and the community that you're trying to embrace. Is it trying to find the right cultural informant, cultural representative that's going to embrace this group? What's the biggest challenge beyond Airbnb to, I'm going to create an experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because you're bridging a gap, and you don't want to create an American experience in Europe for them, because then they're not learning, you're not growing. But at the same time, there's some things that Americans need if you're going to be there for a month. So let me give you an example. Many of us have been to Europe before. We stay in a hotel, and I've had this experience. I don't know about you, but you go in the bathroom and you sit on the toilet, you hit your head on the sink, or you're in the shower and you can't turn around. Everything is in miniature, right? It's tiny. And so what we realize is there has to be certain criteria, especially with the apartments, that is vetted, not just for North Americans, but also for people 55 and older, right? With mobility and whatnot. So we look for things like walk-in showers, right? With space, not something where you can't turn around. The toilet.
Ground floor instead of a 4-story walk up with no elevator.
Yeah, exactly, or elevators, right? And many places don't have elevators, so we vetted it for elevators. Air conditioning, we like our air conditioning now, so we can bridge part of the gap by vetting the apartments to fit the need of North American 55 plus. Now, there's always going to be some cultural differences, though, that you just got to find the right people. And what we promote is we say this is living like a local. I mean, you literally have your own apartment. You're not in a hotel necessarily, right? There's no concierge or doorman or receptionist. Like, you're in an apartment. So what happens? And it's in a city center, right? And many Americans live in the suburbs or in a gated community or a retirement community. It's very quiet. If you're in a European city center, the garbage trucks, they come by at night. They make noise. People in Spain, they eat dinner probably when most Americans are going to sleep, right? So, and they're coming out of the restaurants and bars, and you're in the city center. So there's another thing we look for in the apartment, though, like double paned windows, right, to help reduce the noise. But there is always a bit of a cultural shock. So we go out and try to find travelers who are intrepid and truly want that cultural immersion and know that they'll be pushing themselves a little bit out of their comfort zone. Now, some people don't like that. Those are not a good fit for our program. Those people should go to the Four Seasons. They will be very comfortable. They will not have any discomfort. But if you're down to have a little bit of a growing experience and a true cultural immersion, you can't beat this.
I'm curious because you took this from, once again, we'll say Airbnb to the next level. Tell me from an entrepreneur's point of view, how did this evolve from I want accommodations first to experiences, culinary, art, and how did it evolve? Was it an incremental evolution from an Airbnb to I want to add the following 3 services to make this truly what it is today?
It's funny. It actually sort of spun from a different direction, which is first I thought, oh, these apartments, how is this going to work? This is going to take a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money. I just want to start this business because I believe in it. And I looked at my own parents who live in a 55 plus community, and maybe many of your listeners do. What's beautiful about these communities is the sense of community, and there's usually a clubhouse and there's a calendar of activities and events and put on by the property, but then their own community members put on their own things as well. And I loved watching my parents move into this community. They're so busy now. Now it's like, hey, can you help me out with something? Oh no, we've got this. We got your dad's got poker night, and I've got the water aerobics, and I loved it. I thought, well, what if we just started with the community aspect? And what if I set up like a clubhouse in these cities where people could just come together and have that support and make those friendships? And the apartments, they'll figure it out. But then I realized, okay, that is an important component, but it's the vetting of the apartments that people really wanted us to do, because what you see on one of those websites, we won't put out any names, but sometimes you see the photos and you get there like, wait, the photos look like one thing and this isn't it. So we realized we had to link those two things for this to be successful, the community aspect and then this. And then I also realized if you're going to be there for a month, well, many people have said to me, won't I get bored just being there for a month? It's a fair question. Now, I usually kind of tongue in cheek say, well, what do you do in your hometown for a month? Well, I go to yoga and I play pickleball and I do whatever other things I do, see friends. We have to go to parties, go to theater. You could do all those things in another city, and it's an interesting experience because it's a different cultural context. But that didn't do it for a lot of people. And that's when I realized people have interests: art, history, cooking, language, all these things you mentioned. I thought that's really important. This has to be a time for them to be able to pursue those interests in a meaningful way. And so the way I conceptualize of it is our program is a canvas, and the activities and events that we do is sort of like, it's like a scaffold, or just like the canvas that creates some structure. And then our local community manager gets to know you and says, hi, Duncan, what are you into? Or in my case, Andrew, I know you like jazz and you want to see jazz in this town. And so they'll start suggesting things for you. They really get to know each person and help you build a plan for how do you immerse yourself into your specific interest over the course of a month. So suddenly it doesn't seem like a month is a long time. It seems like, oh my gosh, I have to go to this place. I got to check that out. I want to, see these concerts. And for me, I also like going to the gym wherever I am. And I think it's fun to meet people in the gyms in different countries. And I was like, where are you from? And, conversations start, especially if you go for a few times in a row. And I go to the same cafe, over and over, and then they get to know you. And so that's what fills my month. But part of it is exactly as helping you pursue these interests. And those people who have an interest tend to be the happiest travelers with the good life abroad.
But the people who would take your program are really looking for a different culture. So if they do like pickleball and they're pickleball people, you're like, you know what? You're in Italy. You're going to learn how to play bocce ball instead, because that's the pickle equivalent in Italy. And maybe I'm off base because I'm old fashioned, but I'm using it as an example. Yeah. It's a part of the process. I think what you said, to me resonates as a community manager to help with the barriers culturally, but also, listen, we all need a little help to say, you know what, today there is a cultural arts festival going on. There's a culinary class over here. There's a Van Gogh exhibit. There's something. So you need a little prodding sometimes, because even when we're sitting at home domestically, we're piddling around on social media or not doing all the things we'd like to. And here you are in paradise that you've set up for your clients, and you can easily get caught in social media scrolling or something else. And if you don't have a community manager to bring the group together. So my understanding is you've got, 5, 6, 7 apartments in an area in a clubhouse. You have a sense of community because everybody are living like expats in the neighborhood that can kind of come together and say, hey, I'm lost too. You want to go out and do something? But a community manager that can help bring them together, but also direct them to really have the experience that they want. And they can choose not to. You can say, okay, thank you for the Van Gogh exhibit. I don't care about Van Gogh. I don't want to do it. That's fine.
Exactly. And the personalized recommendations, for example, in this example about jazz, I can go to a city and look in Google jazz in Lisbon, but it's totally different. You have a community manager who's like, I know you like jazz. At the university, there's a student jazz recital. That's so cool. I never would have found that on my own, right? But she knows that I like this. And there are local community managers. They have their fingers on the pulse of their town. They know what's happening. So they know about you, but go find interesting things just for you. And it's like, wow, yeah, I totally have to go do that now, right? And then I'll probably mention it to our community of people, other travelers. And I bet you 5 other people say, I'd love to go with you. Great, let's go to the bar, let's have a happy hour. We'll go to the university, have this cool experience, see student jazz.
So this is making all the sense in the world. The person I was talking to you about this morning is a friend of mine, is a huge jazz fan. And his first comment was, does the Good Life Abroad have a place in Lisbon, Portugal? So I'm guessing there's a huge jazz community there, because that's all he cares about is jazz. So John, John, I've already introduced you to Andrew. You're going to watch this podcast, and your goal of going to Lisbon, I understand now, is about jazz, and you and Andrew can bond on that, which is great. Hey, on your website, I was really fascinated because I think this is important, or it was alluded to, 3 pillars of healthy aging. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this. One is social connectivity and relationships. The second is mental stimulation and adventure. And then the third, of course, is physical activity. And these things are so important as we get older. So let's talk about social connectivity and relationships. And you've alluded to this, to have a community manager. How does an immersion program through Europe and what you're doing, how does that help promote the social connectivity in your travel programs?
Yeah. So I think of our program primarily as a community-based experience. It is a cultural immersion, but having these other people living around you. Well, I should even back up a bit and say, first of all, it's a cohort-based experience. So you sign up for, let's say, Rome or Lisbon, but you sign up for a certain start date, May 1st. So everyone arrives on May 1st. You all check into your apartments, you get settled in. The next day, we have an orientation, all the basics, how to use public transit, groceries, housewares, how to live like a local, really. And then that evening, everyone comes together for the welcome party. And then the drinks are flowing, the food is flowing. You're usually on a rooftop bar. I know in Lisbon, it's a rooftop bar. It's really nice. And then you start to get to meet people, right? And you start to discover the commonalities. Oh, this is a jazz lover. This is a history buff. This person likes art galleries. Cool. And that is the social connection, right? That is so important, that fights off loneliness. And you find people have these shared interests. So I think that's the core of what we do, is create this social connection in addition to the other pillars.
Your community manager is putting programs together, and your second pillar is the mental stimulation and adventure, which should naturally come with this. How are they stimulating the mind with program suggestions, curated tours, or whatever may be available as a part of your program?
Yeah. So every Wednesday in our program, we do some kind of cultural activity. So usually in the first week, you're new to the city, you're doing like a historical walking tour. So it's history of the city. So you understand the depth of what you're in. And these cities, these are ancient cities in Europe. Or you might do a cooking class on a Wednesday. So you're learning something new. Or Lisbon, I know they do a painting workshop. They learn like Portuguese painting. And so you're always doing something to stimulate your mind. But of course, just being in a new place is also mentally stimulating. Learning the new language, we do try to teach people at least the basic phrases so they can do greetings and whatnot. Again, mental stimulation happening all the time.
Physical fitness is a big part of this. And I imagine for maybe some of our older retirement spy people, the physical activity, you can be a little intimidated because you're going to old cities with cobblestone streets and there's some degree of physical exertion. Do you have a baseline for your clients to say, okay, if you're going to go to Lisbon or if you're going to go somewhere else, you need to have a certain level of fitness? Do you set an expectation or are people kind of surprised sometimes?
We do. We have to. It's really important because we're not a tour. We're not picking you up on a bus and taking you anywhere. You're going to the activity, let's say the cooking class. We're going to send you a link on Google Maps. We've taught you how to use the public transportation. You're going to hop on the little streetcars in Lisbon and it's going to take you there. But you probably have to walk from your apartment. And there's just a lot of walking in Europe, right? A lot more. So we say the baseline is you have to be able to walk 2 miles in a day on uneven surfaces. And you have to be able to climb up at least 2 flights of stairs. Because even though our apartments, we make sure they have elevators or that you're at the ground floor, but many buildings are just thousands of years old and they don't have elevators. So you will have to walk up and down. And then in certain cities, and you said Lisbon is an example, it's a very hilly city. They call it the city of the 7 hills. And those are not steep, those are steep hills. So we even give an additional warning for Lisbon. So you really got to be able to walk uphill, for an extended period of time. But we also give guidance. Other cities are more friendly; they're flatter. It's a little easier to get around. So we help guide our people.
We have the arrogance of being Americans for most people on this podcast. So we speak the English language, which is so amazing to me. My friends in Germany and in Europe in general all speak 3 to 4 languages. Yes, most of them speak English. They speak their native tongue. But if you're in Germany, you know French. And if you're French, you know German. And we're so spoiled in the United States. Most of us don't have our own language down pat. If you go to the program that you're going through, you've mentioned your community manager will kind of help you with some basics on and things like that so you won't feel lost. Will you be lost in some of these cities if you really can't speak the language?
No, what's happened for better or for worse, English has really taken over with all the younger folks in Europe in all the major cities. Now, if you go off into some small village and you find a sheep farmer, yeah, you might have a bit of an issue. But in the cities we are in, which are most of the major cities and even secondary cities, they speak English, or you can kind of get by. But what's amazing about today, just 26, from when we were born, Duncan, and I don't want to guess, we don't want to reveal my birth year, but what the big change is this thing, the phone, right? And Google Translate. It's your friend. It's amazing how technology has made travel a lot easier. You can put your phone right over the menu and it puts it in English. Or if even the grocery store, you're like, oh, what is that? Oh, okay. And then now you can talk into it and it talks in the local language. I even saw one of our folks, and again, we work with older crowd, but this guy was really into technology and he had the glasses that had the thing that talked into his ear and he would translate for him in real time. It was spectacular.
I know a little bit of French, and what I've noticed in my international travels, if you really want a culture immersion, you're trying to learn a little bit of the language when you go, and I think that's a healthy thing to do. And I think most people are tolerant if you, the arrogant Americans, are there trying to learn their language and speak it. And even if you're doing horribly, I think there's a lot of respect when you do try, and they appreciate that. There are way too many of us who go over with the arrogance that you're just going to speak English, and if they can't understand it, which they can, and they choose not to because you're not maybe behaving well, that's just natural. So yes, the technology is there. You can always get through this. But when you make the effort, because you want to be there for the cultural experience to speak it, it goes a long way. I mean, really
that's why we have to teach the basic phrases. And not just the phrases, though. And based on the fact you speak some French, I'm imagining you spent some time in France. And one of the most basic things is when you walk into a store, you greet them. Bonjour. And
Wonderful.
something we have lost in America, I don't even think of it as a friendship. I think it's just common courtesy to walk in and say, hello, good day.
Well,
We have this thing that
Southerners, we do that all the time. We're always
you
saying
still
hello.
you still have it. You still have that sense of hospitality and courtesy. And I appreciate that about the South. But I used to live in New York City. You walk into the store, you say, I'll have this, give me that, give me that. And it's so abrasive to so many European cultures to do that, right? So we have to re-educate our groups.
I'm laughing of a reverse immersion culture. If you're living in Paris or you're from Belgium and all of a sudden you want to have a New York experience, why would you want that? You think of the reverse and you're coming in, okay, I'm gonna act like an American. Give me a croissant now. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a group setting. I think what's fun about your experience is you're doing this with other people. How big are the groups usually? Is it 4 or 5 couples, 6 couples? And I imagine there's a close bonding relationship that comes when everybody's coming in together, immersing in Lisbon, and there's some commonalities there. How is that experience translate? Because I'm sure people have given you feedback to say, hey, I met my best friends, or the people we met from Seattle, or now we're traveling together. We're going to go do another city together. How's that working?
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics. So it's couples and solo travelers. And on average, we have let's say 15, 16 people. So what you might get is 4 couples, that's 8. And then you might have 8 solo travelers and make a group of 16. And because it's a community, the solo travelers don't feel weird, right? Because it's like, we're a community. We're all going to go to the concert. We're all going to go do this thing. We're all going to go to happy hour. It's meant to be inclusive. That's what a community is. So that part is really cool, the spirit of it. But then what you said about meeting your friends, like new friends, what we find is even though they come from all different parts of the US and Canada, the thing they have in common is that one of their core values is cultural immersion. These are different people, right? Anyone who says, I want to go spend a month in that city, that's a different person. I love my mom, but she does not understand why I do it. She's like, Andrew, I've been to Barcelona. I saw the top 5 things in 3 days. Why would anyone go for a month to Barcelona? I said, Mom, it's not about just seeing the things. It's about having this Barcelona living experience. So those people whose core value is cultural appreciation and cultural immersion, that's a unique thing, and it bonds them.
It's a fascination. It's an exploration. You're explorers and you're embracing that. That's why I think it's so fun.
Yeah, you explore and you appreciate, right? It's not critical. It's like it's beautiful. Everything is an interesting learning experience. And I think it's actually deeper too, because I mean, you've probably talked about this on the podcast, but in retirement, your whole identity starts to change, right? I'm no longer, Andrew the accountant, because I don't work as an accountant anymore. I was an accountant. I'm not an accountant today. I'm not the dad at the kids' school. The kids are gone. They grew up and they live elsewhere. I might not even be Andrew, the guy who lives on the corner house, because I've downsized since. And now I live in a condo or a 55. So what's your identity? Who's your tribe, right? That becomes a bit of a question in retirement. And I think what makes our program so powerful, or the experience so powerful, and what I hear from our people is, I found my tribe. I found people who deeply value travel and cultural immersion. And these are the people I connect with now. And I want to do this kind of thing, living abroad, as long as I'm physically able to do it. And I might not have that many more years where I can physically be doing these big things, and I'll be stuck back at home in the US. But man, for the next 6, 7, 10 years, that's what I'm doing.
What is the length of a typical immersion program through the Good Life Abroad? Is it a month, 6 months?
So the vast majority of people go for 1 month at a time. They do a month. We have, I would say, 25% of our people do 2 months. They'll do 1 month, say, in Portugal, and then 1 month in France, like back to back. And then I would say a much bigger number do 2 months, but at different times of the year. They want to get back to the States for, family things, and they want to take off again. So often in the shoulder season or winter, they want to get out of the winter, and then they want to do something later in the fall. And so they do it times a year.
This is a flexibility question, because I'm thinking about some friends. One guy's retired, or one of the spouses retired, one's not. And so they're all in for a 2-month immersion. The spouse says, look, I can only come for a week. Can you have the ability to either have family and friends, like the kids want to come join you. You're there for a month. The kids can't take that time off work, but they want to come visit. Is there ability for people to come in and out of the program so one spouse who's still working can do that while the retired spouse is there for a month? Can you have that kind of flexibility?
Yeah, it's amazing how the grandkids all want to visit grandma and grandpa when they've got the apartment in Italy.
In Barcelona, and you're right next to Gaudi's artwork. Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, we do find that we sometimes have couples where one of the people is still working and they actually work remotely if they have that ability, right? After the pandemic, this whole work remote thing has really taken off. So we have some people that one person will work and the other person's kind of out exploring, but they're together. But yes, we absolutely allow visitors. Just like any hotel or apartment, you have to register them. There's no fee on our end. We don't charge extra to have for visitors stay in your apartment. It's your apartment. They can't participate in all the community activities, but there's so many informal activities that our community's coming up with that there'll be a lot of things for them to do, but they're absolutely welcome to stay.
That's so good. What are the top destinations now from all the places and the destinations you have? You say, hey, Duncan, here are the top 3. And why do you think they're the top 3?
Florence, Italy, number 1, for sure. Number 2, Lisbon, and number 3, Paris. And why Florence? I mean, it's because they're different, right? Florence is a relatively small city compared to Paris, which is much bigger. But Florence is like a living museum of art and music and I mean just everything and food. It's so walkable, and you never get bored. So I think of these as cities where you'll never get bored. There's always things to absorb. So they're really easy for people to go to. But we also go to like smaller towns, and some people say, "Oh, I think I'd get bored." I said, "No, you're not trying hard enough. You got to use your imagination." I love that place, and I think of that as a lifestyle city. Reminds me a lot of Southern California. It kind of has great weather all the time. There's a beach right there in the town, and I'm a Southern California guy, so I like to get out. I like to run. I like to swim in the ocean. I like to cycle. I like to play racket sports, and I can do all that. And so I just do that when I'm in Sardinia. But I'm eating really good food along the way.
I bet you are. So weight management's got to be a part of this too, somehow.
Yeah.
If you're truly immersing in culture, well, actually, if you're immersing in a European culture, Europeans aren't fat. Americans are fat. They're eating really good. They're eating well and still staying healthy.
And so the ingredient, I mean, like Sardinia is really interesting. It's one of the blue zones in the world, right? Where people live extraordinarily long lives. And why do they? Comes down to relationships, community, friendships, right? They have these relationships very strong, but also the food that they eat. It's all, pure, it's healthy, it's whole foods that they're eating. And then they're walking a couple miles a day, just getting around. And so it's, you're eating more, but I usually lose a bit of weight because I'm walking so much more. And I'm outside so much more, and it's just healthier.
You've got a great footprint right now. What future destinations are on your mind right now or that you're working on that you've said this would be good fit for what I've seen so far within my clientele?
Yeah. So there's a couple of big gaps we have. One, because one of the things we learned when we rolled out the program in Sicily is a lot of our travelers have Sicilian heritage, and they're coming to connect with their culture, whether they want to go find the village that they're from or just live there and just feel the culture that they might recognize from a grandparent or something. So we learned that heritage is really important. And therefore, a big gap is Ireland. We definitely need to do something in Ireland. I think in 2026, we will announce a program in Ireland. That'll be a big one. And Germany would be the other big gap in our portfolio.
You mentioned the cultural gap, and Lisa, by the way, I'm paying attention to you. A friend of mine who's got Italian roots is scheduled and is excited about going to Sicily. It's a big thing, and she's headed there in October. We had a discussion about it just a few weeks ago. And then to your point about Ireland, what you're talking about is people looking at their genealogy and really wanting to explore. And I've got a friend of mine who's doing a 6-month in Ireland. And literally he's doing 30 days at a time for 6 months and looking at his heritage. And I mean, literally 1 month in city in Ireland to trace his genealogy. And it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's really cool.
Gosh, listen, I need to put them in touch with you. You got everything's picked out. So this has got to be hard when you're looking to go to Ireland. What goes into the selection and the curation for the next city, and how hard is it? I mean, it's a real estate equation, no doubt. But then it's a what's the agenda, and do you have the cultural informant that really needs to pull it all together? Your community managers are what I'd say. I call them a cultural informant.
Exactly. I like that term though. Our community manager is definitely the cultural informant. And so I have one of my colleagues. This is what he does: is just setting up these programs. He lives in Europe. He is European, and so he's going out. And I said, look, the most important thing is getting our community manager right, because that person will make or break the experience. They'll be able to unlock all the secrets of the town. They got to know the city really well. So we got to find that right person, and we do have to go to a city that's big enough where there is a lot of things to do and keep people occupied. So we're not going to go to some tiny village. But there's a couple of options in Ireland. And then we got to filter in the real estate layer. Where are we going to get these apartments that are going to be acceptable to Americans 55 and older, and we get a fair price, that are of a similar standard, right? We can't have one apartment that looks like this and one that's totally different. They all have to be more or less the same. And then we got to put those things together. And then we got to go to market with it and see where people want to go.
Does the cultural informant have to be a full-time person? It seems like it could be a part-time person unless you've got them doing multi-functions like a property management and a cultural informant. It sounds like it just, find a cute gal or guy that's there who really knows the culture and can be very entertaining.
It's that, but we also provide, one of the benefits of the program is we provide that community manager is supporting you anytime, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. If you got a question, I'm lost on the metro, I got turned around, you can just send them a WhatsApp text message, and they're there to support all of you. Hey, we want to go go golfing and stay in Andrews this weekend. How do we do that? Do we have to rent a car? How do we get a tea time? I got you, and they'll send you that, or they'll set up a meeting. You can meet in person, and they'll kind of help you make the plan for the thing you want to do. So it's not totally a full-time job, but it's more than just the activities, because we do provide ongoing support. And if it is an emergency, even if it's at night or on the weekends, you can call them, and they got your back.
So it's a concierge, but I do like cultural informant because what you're looking for is really a unique experience. I love Stanley Tucci's walk through Italy and how he combined culinary with the towns, the bolognese sauce with Bologna, right? And you want somebody who's local that says, hey, you know what? There's a festival coming up this week, and here's why you want to be a part of it. And there are curators of these things, which is really a lot of fun. Tell me what a daily routine looks like in one of your cities. Your community managers there, your community of 8, 10, 15, 16 people are there. What does a daily routine look like for somebody in your program?
So there's not really a daily routine, because we don't offer activities every single day. The idea is to also give you that free exploration. So let me give you a kind of a week panorama. So Monday, nothing. You're chilling out. You're going to your cafe. You're reading a book, doing whatever you're going to do, exploring on your own. Tuesday, I encourage people to have a routine of going to the same cafe each morning. That way they get to know you, right? I think there's something to that, right? Oh, there's that guy. Hey. Practice the few phrases of that language. Tuesdays, we have our Tuesday lunch club. And this is more than just lunch. It's a tradition within the Good Life Abroad. But we got our community managers try to take you out to places you're not going to see on your own. It could be a grandmother's house. It might be like, let's get on the bus and let's go to the next town over, and I'm going to take you to some interesting place, some interesting restaurant. And then we're going to order a bunch of different appetizers to teach you about the culture through its food, right? And then you're going to have this meal. You order your lunch, hours, wine is flowing. And then the great part is you're done. You don't have to get back on the tour bus. You can go back to your apartment, take a nap, or you can go exploring. So then you kind of have your day. And then Wednesday, we do these cultural activities. So then the next day might be, we're going to go to, and let's stick with Lisbon, the home of a fado singer. And she's going to explain what fado music is and do a private performance. And wow, that was cool. I just learned something. And then you're free to go explore. And then Thursday, we have our happy hours. And that's really fun because it's not just having the drinks. Again, it's teaching you about the culture and about the city. Like in Barcelona, they do a vermouth making workshop. Vermouth is big in Spain. They take their vermouth seriously. And so here we learn about the vermouth. You try different vermouths, get a little tipsy here, but then they give you the ingredients to make your own combination, your own concoction of vermouth. And then you take it along as a souvenir, a little bottle of it. And that's a really nice happy hour. So you're having some drinks with friends, these community members. It's just people from our group. And it's a nice happy hour, and you're going to see another part of the city. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you're free again. And that's why Tuesday's so nice when we come together like, hey, what have you been up to for the past few days? Oh, you took the train to Madrid. What was that like, right? And it's like a time when the community gets back and reconnects.
That's what I like about your program is the autonomy. You want structure, but at the same time, if you're structured out, you're really not experiencing the culture because you've got too many agendas. To your point, I love the Tuesday cafe idea. Going there at the same time every day, and you're immersing with the people who are getting to know you. And it's amazing if we do it correctly. We're actually helping immerse their culture with us. If we're good people, hopefully we're representing our country well when we're over there doing good things like that.
Absolutely.
Question, healthcare, you mentioned about it earlier. That's probably the biggest concern of a lot of people if you're going for a month or 6 months. How do you structure healthcare insurance or educate people on healthcare about, minor emergency versus I've got a heart attack, what do I do? And I imagine your community manager is helping with that indoctrination as well.
Yeah. So we provide travel medical insurance, $100,000 policy, $500,000 for evacuation. But part of the orientation on the first full day of the program is health and safety. What do we do if it's a big one? How to get the ambulance? How do I call it from my phone, which is an American phone? What do I do, right? These little things, you got to be prepared because you can't figure it out when it's happening. Where is the nearest clinic? So if it's a little thing, right here in your neighborhood, there's a clinic. It's for like twisted ankles or things like that. And then once you're there, whatever the thing is, how do I pay for it? Does insurance pay for it? How do I even make sure I'm talking to someone who speaks English? So all of those things are sort of sorted out. And what the nice thing is first of all, thank God we haven't had many major things, right? A lot of it is twisted ankles on cobblestones, as you can imagine. Sure. And you go in and they get an x-ray and you see the doctor. And the best part about Europe is that might cost $100. It's like, so you're like, yeah, I'll just put that on my credit card. I'll submit the receipt to the insurance. I'll get reimbursed my $100. But it's $100. If I went in for x-rays to see a doctor in the United States, I would be freaked out, right? If I didn't have, local insurance, my medical insurance.
And this is why everybody wants to move to Europe. And everybody wants to go to Portugal in particular to get a golden visa, which I don't think you can get the golden visa anymore or not.
They've changed the laws. It's quite different now.
Let me ask you about expectations. Your people come into your program with one expectation, and then I'm sure as an exit interview with you, tell us what they've gone in expecting and what not surprises, but wonderful experiences that they've had coming out. Here's my expectation. Here's how Andrew exceeded it. Give us an idea of a story that would be good to share with our audience.
They come in as tourists because that's what we know. We've been tourists. They come in and every day they're trying to pack in as many things as they can see, right? I got to see this. I got to see this. And they got to have the best meal. I got to go to that Michelin-starred restaurant. I got to do this. And by Friday, they're like, I don't think I can do this anymore. You got to slow down. You're not a tourist. You're living like a local. You're going to run yourself ragged, right? You just burn out. And so they learn to slow down. They learn to appreciate the little things, right? Go to that cafe, like I told you, right? Develop these routines. Don't stop doing your wellness routine, whatever it is Pilates or yoga or strength training. Don't give that up. That's what people do on vacation. No, you're here for a month. Do that. Let's do it here locally. I didn't realize I could do it. I didn't think I would understand it in the local language or whatever. No, yoga, you just look at the pose, and then they start to slow down. They start to develop routines. That's one thing, right? And they start making connections. And then they start hanging out with the people in our group, our community, and they're maybe hosting a potluck, and suddenly they're having a potluck party, and then they're going. And so by the end, they've learned, one, to slow down and do things more like a European would, right? Just really appreciate the little things. And even making dinner and going to the fresh market. For example, we always hear, oh, yeah, the refrigerator's small for us, right? Well, you're not going to Costco here. There's no Costco. You're going to the supermarket a few times a week, and you're getting the fresh produce that were just picked. And you're going to cook, and maybe you've got enough for a couple of days. But that's part of the rhythm, the local rhythm is doing that and not loading up the car. Costco, it's some shopping bags, and you're just walking back to your apartment. So that slowing down and savoring is one of the big things that they realize. I love that and I miss it when I get back home to the United States. The other part,
going from tourist to residents.
Yeah, it's a transition. They're going from tourists. That's what they know how to do. And then they realize they can't do that forever. And then they really slow down. And then at the end, the other thing that really surprises people is that, yeah, I knew there was this community of people. I knew there was I don't know who they are. And I don't I don't really think I cared. Then I realized, oh my gosh, I've met my tribe. These are amazing human beings that share some of my core values around culture and immersion and appreciation. And I love this, and I want to keep doing this with these kind of people. And that's something, a big takeaway that comes in.
I can't wait to ask this question. We're coming into a close, and this is a fun one. I'm looking forward to this. If you have your own immersion experience that's not currently on your map within the Good Life Abroad, where would it be? How long would you stay? And what key experiences are you there to experience?
So it's a great question. And I'm actually doing it for myself and my girlfriend. We have never been to Morocco, and we want to experience Moroccan culture. And so, but we don't want to just go see the sites. I mean, we want to see the sites, but we want to do more than that. We want to do this thing. So we were going to do. So in America, we play pickleball, but in Europe and most of the Middle East and even South America, they play a sport called padel. It's sort of like squash and tennis. It's a racket sport, and it's really big. And so we want to sign up and take lessons, and you always play doubles. So we're going to have to meet local Moroccans who play this sport. And every morning, we're going to take a lesson, and then we're going to play a match and just do what the Moroccans do. And then we're going to have our lunch, have our apartment. And then as I kind of move towards retirement, my personal goals was I want to become a really good cook. I want to, like where people are excited to come to my house to have a meal. So I want to learn Moroccan cooking. So signing up for some of that for, a number of lessons. I want to learn the spices. And I want to do some of the, not just classes, but then do it myself, going into the market, identifying the spices and whatnot. And that's going to be important for me to really get in there. And then she's really into outdoors stuff, hiking and whatnot. So we're going to do a hiking out in the mountains, but we're going to live with a family, the Berber tribe that lives in the Atlas Mountains. We're going to live with the family and do that cultural immersion. Today we can go hiking around the mountains.
My son went, and he wanted to do sand surfing, and he didn't get a chance to do sand surfing. And another friend of mine went and said, beware of snake handlers who are in the markets who would like to wrap a cobra around your neck and then charge you $5 for a photo. And you're like, there's nothing you can do because there's a cobra around your neck. Like, wait a minute. Beware of that. Thank you, Andrew, so much. What a great day today. Please tell us, our audience, how they can find more about the Good Life Abroad, how to get in touch with you if they need. Give us your contact information, if you would, please.
Absolutely. So just Google the words The Good Life Abroad will come up right at the top. And to get me, it's really easy. My email address is Andrew, my first name, at thegoodlifeabroad.com. You can also Google my name, but you probably won't figure out how to spell it because it's kind of long. But if you just do Andrew at the Good Life Abroad, you'll find me.
That's wonderful. Andrew, thank you so much for the time today. I can't wait to be a part of your program. I know our audience is going to be excited to learn more about this. So stay tuned, and thank you for being at the Retirement Spy today.
Thank you so much, Duncan. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Wonderful.